I have a really unpopular opinion for you. You don't need to squeeze your fist down tight when you punch. So many people, they understand that, oh, you need to be relaxed while you're throwing the punch, but then they're still like, well, you want to squeeze down really tight when you hit the final strike. And I'm going to tell you that is completely unnecessary. All right. So now I'm not going to say that this is just something you can do right off the bat, first day thing. This may not be a tip for beginners, although I do actually give beginners this tip. And I want to explain something to you that I think that is very important, and you're going to do what you're going to do. Go ahead and disagree with me. That's fine. So one of the things that we have to look at is kind of the shearing force idea. When we have, when we hold our hands, right, the metacarpals are pretty much going in the same lines as the fingers, right? So if I hold everything in line, right, the middle finger is the straightest line down through, and we want this line from the tip of the elbow through the middle finger to be as straight as possible. Now, one thing that we do know is that the radius is actually the load-bearing bone there. It's the one that's directly connected to, whereas the ulna is connected to the radius. People like to say, well, when you turn your wrist over, the bones crisscross, and that's a bad position. I'd like to see the evidence that that's a bad position. I'd like to see the evidence that people are somehow weakening their structure doing that. Because if that's the case, then why do we bench press and overhead press with twisted forearms and don't seem to be snapping our wrists and forearms up? Doesn't make sense. So completely spurious argument there. The next thing is, right, if this one is straight, then regardless of what I hit with, whether I hit, with the common modern, two-knuckle method, or I take the kind of, the Jack Dempsey and Chinese martial arts three-knuckle method, what you're going to notice is that these two bones are going to be running kind of at a slight angle, right? So if I make my fist and I cant it over just a little bit to line these two bones up so they're both sharing a slight V, that works fine. And if I cant the fist slightly up, not to pronounce the pinky, because that is a very small bone, but to, again, make these go, that makes a slight V. In fact, canting my wrist this way loads everything up over that radius better, so it's not really a problem there, right? When you bench press and overhead press, you get a bit of that going in there to load that weight over that radial line. That's pretty important. So by turning this way, you're actually getting a little bit more radius in there. Either way, whatever, right? Those aren't the shearing forces so much that I care about, right? The common denominator in both methods is the middle knuckle. So if you really want to know my opinion on which way should you be punching, give your opponent the finger. Aim with the middle knuckle, that's your nail driver. I don't really care about the other two. What I do care about is this. This needs to be a straight line. This needs to be an absolutely straight line, right? If you cannot hit without this being a straight line, you're gonna start running into potential wrist problems, and that is a serious problem, right? And this is where, like, knuckle push-ups are actually a really good thing. Maybe not the way that you want to do all the time, but this is where knuckle push-ups become a good thing. Obviously, doing your bag work, doing your mitt work, whatever kind of wall bag or makiwara training you're doing, etc., really helps strengthen that up. Never mind, you could just be doing some additional wrist exercise. The additional wrist exercise is not a bad thing. But there's one more thing, and this is where, again, shearing forces, right? Remember, shearing forces, it's like a scissors. You get forces going in two different directions, opposing one another, right? So if my force is going this way, but my wrist cranks, that's a problem, right? Because now I have a force intersecting that at an oblique angle, and that shearing force is generally not something that these tissues are good at handling. But getting back to the original point of squeezing the fist down, look what happens when I squeeze my fist down. These knuckles displace, right? The pinky knuckle by far, the ring knuckle just a little bit. And that's problematic because, again, if my force is going this way and I've squeezed those knuckles down, what ends up happening, right? I intersect on an oblique angle and I've got force going one direction, and then I've also got force that is trying to be applied in a slightly different direction. And there you go, there's a real quick way to a boxer's fracture. That's not a good thing, right? So funny enough, the relaxed fist is certainly not popular, but is practiced by a sturdy few. Goes back to the 1700s at least in English boxing. There's a manual from 1788, I think. It's just called The Complete Art of Boxing. And he actually says that you should not squeeze your fist tightly, but you should have it blown up like a balloon so that air can pass, from one end of the fist to the other. And so this is something that at least one boxer had recognized back in the day, even if he didn't have the scientific language to understand what he was saying. But by doing that, you kind of keep those knuckles flat, and you'll notice that I can really press into this and those knuckles aren't going anywhere. Whereas I squeeze those down, now I'm applying force on an oblique angle, and it's going to make it more likely to bend and could lead to potential breakage. So, as a way to prove this, right, you can hit with a completely open hand, right? And it's no big deal as long as you can keep this straight and you keep those metacarpals straight. It really doesn't matter near as much as people say it does. The biggest thing is keeping this straight. I don't want to use the word rigid because you do need to be relaxed, but you need to be relaxed with structure. You need to have that straight line structure. And this is something that you can actually practice doing, again, knuckle push-ups and practice hitting the wall bag. I mean, you can work up to actually being able to hit stone and concrete with an open fist and none of this flexing or breaking, obviously up to a reasonable amount of force, because there's always an amount of force that will break you, right? You cannot be bulletproof. Sorry, you're not Superman. But when you hit, it is completely unnecessary to fully close your fist. And it's funny, people talk about like boxers wraps being such a bad thing, and there are reasons that boxers wraps are a bad thing, but people talk about them being a bad thing because you can't fully close your fist. And well, the fact is that's actually not the part that matters that much. That's not the part that matters that much at all. In fact, is it Rex Applegate? One of them, suggested packing your fist with a matchbook. And, one of these old school, like World War I era guys. And packing your fist with a matchbook is not adding any appreciable weight. That's not like holding a roll of quarters and adding extra weight to your fist. What is that doing? It is flattening this fist out so that all these things are in a straight line. When you hold something in your fist and kind of pack it out with something, you keep those bones straight, and that way, even if you do squeeze, if your monkey brain still squeezes, it can't fully deform those bones and take them offline. And that becomes a really, really powerful tool in your arsenal to be able to keep everything straight in those lines without deforming. That is a really, really powerful concept. And if you don't actually have to squeeze at the end, then what are you doing, right? By being able to stay relaxed through the whole movement, relax is a relative term, of course, but by being able to stay relaxed, it allows you to literally throw your punch, to project the energy of your punch. And I'm not talking about magical energy, and we're not talking about throwing Hadoukens and Kamehameha waves and stuff, but you can literally just project the energy of your punch into the target. And I encourage you, try this. Have somebody hold pads for you, or it's the safest way. I mean, you can just be a dick and hit your friend or whatever, but the fact is, it hit with a slightly more relaxed hand and relax and project and act like you're throwing, and the energy tends to travel deeper. It doesn't just break up on the surface and bruise up the muscle. It actually travels deeper inside the body, and ideally, right, if you can get some interruption in the nervous system and the organs that way, then you start hitting not harder but heavier, and that's a really, really powerful thing to understand. So it does not require you to be hard and rigid and squeeze. That really just doesn't help that much. And you have to exert yourself so much more to build up the force to overcome the resistance of the target when you stay rigid, because you're losing so much energy on the surface that it's not a particularly efficient way to do things. Now, like I said, this is not a popular opinion, and you're going to go ahead and disagree with me, and that's okay. But I need to put this out there because I want you guys to understand that there's more than one way to do things. And at the end of the day, right, all you need to remember is keep your wrist straight and give your opponent the middle finger. All right, with that, I'm going to get out of here. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. In the links down below, you can find our social media, and I encourage you to follow us there. Take a look at our blog, where we have articles that go into depth that we just can't do in our video productions. And on top of that, go to our Amazon store, pick out a shirt that you like, and every little bit helps. If you're ever in the Phoenix area, look us up. Come in for a class, come in for open mat, whatever. Love to see you down here. You can find all our contact info on the website. Talk to you guys in the next one. Good journey.